Hello and happy Christmas. My name's Tim Shearbridge. Welcome to this video. It's not about any hardware. I'm not doing a review or anything like that. I'm actually working on my Dreadbox Nymfez review at the moment. You can see it behind me there. This is actually about a competition. I get very excited about competitions. Spitfire Audio fairly recently announced a competition, yet another one. They have a bit of a checkered history as far as competitions go. I love competitions. I always enter them. I never win them. I'm never even a runner-up. I'm never even mentioned at all. But I keep on doing them. I love them. I've been doing them for many, many years, whether it's a photography competition or videography or music composition, etc. I love to do them. And the reason why I love to do them is because I think that they're a really, really good exercise. Because unless you write professionally, and let's face it, we all dream of becoming film composers one day. Well, many of us do. I do, certainly. But it's never going to happen. Otherwise we're just writing music for ourselves. And that doesn't really sort of push our boundaries. It doesn't put us in uncomfortable situations. It doesn't make us sort of like work to a tight deadline. It's too easy just producing an art form like music or photography or whatever it is just for yourself. It's sometimes good to push yourself a little bit. So with a competition, you've got a deadline that you've got to work towards. You've got some material to work with that you might not like. You've got to interpret what the judges are looking for. And I think that's really important because actually it's like working for a client. It's great to produce your own music for your own entertainment and your own interest, but it's a completely different ball game to be producing music or any art for a client who, although they might give you a good brief on what they expect, at the end of the day, you've got no idea as to what you produce, whether they're going to like it or not. And that's all part of, I think, the whole, experience of entering a competition. You might think you understand the brief, you might come up with something that you're really proud of, that you really think has got a good chance of winning, and they don't like it at all. They have no interest in it whatsoever. It's all rather a bit of hit and miss, a bit like a lottery, but just like a lottery, unless you buy a ticket, you're never going to ever have a chance of winning. Unless you actually enter a competition, you're never going to have a chance of winning. So I have no qualms about the fact that I'm going to get anywhere in this competition, but I love the fact that I'm entering it. And I love the whole process that we're going through here. So let me talk about the competition. It was announced by Spitfire Audio a couple of weeks ago via email. I think they sent me the email on the 14th of December. So I'm obviously registered with them. I'm a customer of theirs. So I guess anyone like that is going to have got that email. But other than that, it's not really well advertised. It's certainly not mentioned. I can't see it mentioned on their main Spitfire Audio website. It's mentioned on a separate website called sarecordings.com. I'm showing my screen here so you can see the page. I don't know what sarecordings.com is. I think it might be Spitfire Audio's own record label, maybe. It's got its own webpage there. It's called Recompose. And the idea behind this competition is that there is an artist by the name of Marshall Vincent. He is described as being an intimate R&B artist. He's got some very interesting music. Obviously, I'd love to play it for you right now, but I can't because of copyright strike potential. So check him out, definitely. But basically, he has provided the vocal stems, or some of the vocal stems, not all of them, from one of his recent hit songs. And the idea is that you take those vocals and you blend them into your own composition, a completely different composition. Can't even speak. Composition. So that is the idea behind it. And I've never tried anything like this before. And I was very, very keen to have a go. So let's check out what the competition is about and what I ended up doing. Okay, so if you take a look at the website or the web page that's got the Recompose competition on, there's lots of information there about Marshall Vincent himself, about what they're looking for. Basically, what they're looking for is different perspectives on the song. So obviously not coming up with something that sounds like the original, a personal and fresh interpretation, and something true to the individual. And you are the individual. I am the individual. which is great. You know, it means that you can't get it wrong, really. You just got to come up with something that is true to you. That should be straightforward. How they then judge which is the best track that's true to me and you, I don't know. I don't know how they're going to judge this competition at all. I think it's going to be coming up with something very, very different to his track. I think that's probably the key to it. There's information about the prize. There's a message from Marshall about the song that the vocal stems are coming from to give you a bit of perspective about it. There's information about how you enter, which is all fine. The end date for this is the 12th of January 2022 at midnight. And the song, this is this interesting stuff here. The song should be no longer than 4 minutes maximum, which is good to know because the first version I came up with was longer than 4 minutes. So you'd be instantly disqualified. So keep it under 4 minutes. Tracks must use samples from Marshall Vincent's track, but it can incorporate other elements. And it doesn't say it has to use them all. It just has to use some samples. There's got to be some vocals from the samples that they provide. Songs can be with or without your own vocals, so you can add your own vocals if you want to. Entries must be submitted via the form on this page, fair enough. You do not need to use Spitfire audio libraries to write your piece, which is very nice. You can choose any instruments you like. Great. Stick your track on SoundCloud, make it public, and give it a hashtag. Now, the one thing I will say is that when I looked at that hashtag, it looks to me like there's a typo in it. There's no second O there. It's Recompose without a second O. That might be intentional. It might not. But I think it's very important to use the correct hashtag because otherwise that's another reason for being disqualified from the competition. I did actually send Spitfire Audio an email last night asking them to clarify if that is the correct hashtag or not. They said they'd look into it. Thanks very much. So, you know, maybe they'll update this web page, maybe they won't, maybe it's the right hashtag, who knows. But anyway, there you go, one song per person, one entry, sorry, per person, very straightforward. So that is the page, and they give you a link here for downloading the vocal stems. Now, my first piece of advice to you is to read all this information because I didn't read it properly, and once I downloaded the stems I put them into my DAW, which is Cubase, and I spent hours trying to figure out the timing of those vocal stems, the beats per minute, and I didn't see there 98.44 BPM written there in brackets. I figured it out for myself. Actually, I didn't get 98.44, I got just 98.4, which is actually good enough. But I'd have saved myself so much time if I just noticed that there. And actually, when you go to the web page where you can download the stems, you can actually play them. There it is, in big, bold writing at the top, 98.44. I don't know how I missed that, but I did. But anyway, there are the stems. As you can see, they're all 2 minutes and 57 seconds long, so it's easy to match them together. I basically downloaded them, just chucked them into my DAW, and let's have a listen to a few of them here. I haven't got them all here. I've got the ones that I ended up using. So there's a click track that they give us. Pretty sparse in terms of clicks, but mildly helpful. So yeah, let's just listen to the main vocal. Let's do that. I just need to activate good old Cubase. I have to just activate it before it'll allow me to play it. Yeah, so let's just solo this main vocal. Let's come to here, and you'll hear the first challenge that you've got. Let's just play this.
If I was your lover, I wouldn't have to pick you up, 'cause I would never tie you down.
I won't play any more than that because I don't want any copyright strikes. But you can hear this caked in reverb and effects, and some of them are even more caked in effects than that. Let me play you this one here, Vox Tail. delays and everything going on there. So, you know, I mean, that's the first challenge. The first challenge is wouldn't it have been nice to give us the dry vocal without any effects? But I think that's probably just going to make it too easy. So you're going to have to deal with heavily caked effects on these vocals. Now, there are plugins that can attempt to remove reverb from audio. I haven't tried to do that because I've tried that in the past with other things and it just completely ruins the audio as far as I'm concerned. So I've just left it in there. But, you know, the biggest challenge for me with this competition is that, you know, clearly you've got some melody lines going on there in these vocals. And you've got to then sort of like put a song around that is different to his song, but obviously still contains his melodies. And that really got me. I spent a number of hours trying to figure out what I could come up with, and I just drew a complete blank, and I walked away from it. I thought, this is just not going to work. How can I come up with my own tune around someone else's tune, while still incorporating their melody? And the way I ended up getting around it was to break up his vocal samples into really small, little, tiny chunks. Let me show you my song that I ended up coming up with. Here it is. Okay, so actually his vocal stems are just these ones down the bottom here. Let's make them pink, stand out there. Those are the vocal stems. And you'll see that most of them are the same ones over and over again. These are duplicated. I duplicate them so I can just pan them slightly left and right and delay them slightly to make them sound bigger. Because they're not particularly loud, a lot of these vocal stems. So these are all the same. These little ones here, you see all over the place. And these are sort of like main verses here. And these are the same as each other down here. So I've really not used very much of the vocal stems at all. Just pick little bits out and have to deal with the fact that there is a melody in there which I've ended up building a song around. And as I said, I kind of gave up with this whole thing, and I walked away from it, thought, no, this is just a waste of my time. I've got far more important things to do with my life than this. But I came up with some chords that I was playing on my little Nordwave 2 here. Just incidentally, I used to have a chord Kronos, and I sold it a few months ago. I just wasn't utilizing it enough, and I've ended up sort of like using this as my main controller keyboard. I really do like it, actually. For me, it is so simple. Whereas a chord Kronos, if you want to create your own patches, incredibly complicated synthesizer. It really is incredibly powerful, but incredibly complicated workstation. Sorry, not synthesizer. This is so much more simple. And I've got a very, very simple little piano patch going on here. So the chords that I came up with were... Actually, I can't even remember. I can't remember. Hang on. Let me just solo. Oh yeah, I remember now. That's it. Just those three chords. I just came up with that. So yeah, I just applied a little bit of filter to that piano sample, and then it's just three of my favourite 4-note chords. And I actually came up with that for a completely different reason, for something completely different that I was working on. And I was actually in the shower when the idea came to me of taking those chords and trying to see if they would fit with the vocal stems. Because the trouble with these vocal stems is, well, with any vocal stems that you might have to be working with, is that you end up playing them so much over and over and over again that they just get stuck in your head. So all I was doing was just singing a Marshall Vincent song in my head over and over again, but then I kind of in my head merged it with these chords, and they kind of work quite well. So that's where I went with my song here. I ended up applying those chords with his stems. So if I just solo the chords, and let's solo these stems down the bottom here. Let's just hear what that sounds like.
I don't wanna make you wide. I don't wanna make you wide. I don't wanna make you wide.
So that's really all I had at that point, and I also added the same. As you can see, I mean, maybe you can see there, but it's the same chords playing all the way through. A bit monotonous, maybe, but they kind of gave the background, they gave the backbone to my song, and then I sort of like layered other things on top. I even got those chords; they seem to work fine with this verse here, or this main vocal. Let's play this main vocal.
I wouldn't have to pick you up, 'cause I would never tie you down. It's so simple. Can you be simple with me? Can you be simple?
So this was my way of obviously incorporating that melody that he's singing there, but kind of imposing over the top of it my chord structure, which is my chord structure, which, as you can see, you know, his vocals there are really quite sparse. Most of this song is taken up with my chord structure and therefore my track, and lots of other melodies and stuff going on in there as well. Actually not very much in terms of melody, but I like to put together sort of like little sequences and combine them together and create some little rhythmic kind of things going on there. What I ended up doing, which I think is trying to be true to his original idea of his song, is when you listen to his lyrics, he's going on about keeping it simple the whole time. It's about love and a relationship that he wants, and he wants a simple relationship, don't we all? Not a complicated one, keeping it simple. And you know what I ended up doing with this whole song here is keep it as simple as possible. The only instruments that I'm using here is a piano. I've got like a fretless bass, sampled fretless bass sound, which is from the Nordwave 2. And what else have I got? Well, the piano, you might hear there's a little bit of string sound going on in the background. That's because it's actually a layer with this, with the mod wheel. I'll turn the mod wheel up, and as the piano dies away, you hear there's strings. So it's actually just the one keyboard patch with a little bit of a string via the mod wheel, and I just use piano. And other than that, as I say, there's a little bass line going on in there. Let's just have a listen to the bass line. Very, very simple little bass line, and it's so subtle actually that you really don't notice the bass when you listen to the track. It doesn't sort of like come out at you at all, which is what I wanted. I just wanted it to just be in the background there, just sort of like reinforcing what else is going on. But in terms of piano, I ended up recording 3 separate piano pieces. So I've got my chords, which I played already. And I came up with a couple of little sequences that go together. So here's the first one. I'll play them with the chords so you hear it all together. So And I originally thought about just using a synthesizer, one of my synthesizers, and adding a nice little synth sequence in there. But I just decided just keep it simple, just keep it piano. Why the hell not? So there's that one, and then there's just one more sequence, another little riff that I've got going on here. Let's add that one into the mix and let's see what that sounds like. Now playing it back just like that, just with those tracks I've selected there, it sounds actually a bit muddy. It sounds like there's too much reverb going on with that piano. But actually, for me, it's okay when you listen to the whole song with all the tracks enabled, because the thing is, the vocal stems are so caked in reverb that actually playing them with completely dry instruments just didn't sound right to me. It just sounded a bit jarring, and so I needed to kind of like loosen up everything else to go with that sort of like reverb saturated vocal that we've got going on there. So that's why I ended up adding this extra reverb. I've got drums going on in there. It's quite an, you might tell, it's quite an upbeat song. There's a sort of quite a driving drum line to it. I will play a little segment of it in a minute. But one other thing that I haven't mentioned yet, but I've got here, is I'm using actually Spitfire Audio's Albion Solstice library just for some vocals, because just having the vocal stems on their own, I actually wanted to try and kind of help to integrate those vocals into my track. So I ended up playing some sort of like backing vocals, female backing vocals via this Albion Solstice library. They're not actually saying any words, they're just sort of like making sounds. But it kind of helped me to sort of like sit between Marshall Vincent's vocal line over here and my track over here, and I've got something in the middle now which is kind of helping to sort of bring those two worlds together, if you like, because what I'm playing here with the Spitfire Audio Library is my own melody. So let me just play you what this sounds like. Yeah, let's just solo this one. And I've got reverb on it as well. So for me, that kind of like is the glue between the vocal stems that I'm having to use versus the song that I've created around it, the instrumental part of the song that I've created around it. Now I've got a little bit of vocal glue that kind of helps to sort of bring the two things together. And as you can hear there, my vocals I've added are caked in reverb as well. Let's play the whole thing. Just this segment of it here. Let's go from this point here. So there you go. So that really, for me, gave me like most of the song. As you can see here, I've got this sort of groove going on over here, and I've actually got it repeated over here with some just a little bit extras added in there. So then I've got this middle section where I'm actually stripping it right back. You'll see that there's not much going on in terms of instruments playing, where I actually come to the sort of the main verse So it's much more simplified and stripped back at this point and quieter. There's no drums going on at all.
I wouldn't have to pick you up, 'cause I will never tie you down. It's so simple. Can you be simple with me? Can you be simple? I'll never make you change, 'cause I will never have a reason. It's my leisure. It's simple. Can you be simple with me?
Then we get back into the bit more upbeat stuff going on there, where I'm a bit more in control, if you like, in terms of the melody, because those vocal lines, as you can see there, those verses, it's really his melody, and you have to deal with that. You have to have his melody there, unless you want to do, chop it all up and try and recreate it yourself. So that's basically it. I've got these two main sections, verse, and then we're building into the sort of like the upbeat section here. Now these three bits here, this is again more piano, and I just added a bit of a jazzy kind of improvisation on piano, and I've realized that that's something that I like to do. It's weird, actually, when I started to write my own music, having come from, being a teenager and then into my 20s and being completely passionate about Genesis and Pink Floyd and Yes and Peter Gabriel and all those kind of prog rock artists and loving their music so much, I just assumed that when I started to write my own music that I would be writing prog rock kind of style, and actually I haven't, and I've never actually really written in that style, and I've kind of fought it. I've tried to write in that style, and it's just not really for me, and it's a bit weird. I've kind of had to come to terms with the fact that when I sit down with just like a blank sheet of paper and a blank mind and start playing, that what I end up coming up with musically is not that kind of music that was so influential to me back then. I've got a little bit more of a sort of a jazzy sort of like feel to the stuff that I do. I like to sort of like run around and improvise on piano, and that's what I ended up doing. And I guess for me, that's fine with this song, because that is my individuality and my personality coming out into this song. It is true to the individual in that case. And that's what I've ended up doing. It might not be what anyone wants to listen to. It might not be what anyone is going to be interested in terms of the judging of this competition, but it is just what I came up with, and I'm quite happy with it. I'm just a little bit unhappy about the level of reverb caked around the vocals, and then having to try and then sort of like put those into my song, because with all of that reverb, it kind of lends itself to a very ambient, quiet, laid-back kind of song with maybe some Spitfire audio, orchestration going on in the background. Maybe that's the idea. For me to come up with an upbeat kind of poppy kind of song with all of that reverb in there, it doesn't really quite work very well. But I've hopefully, I'm treading a fine balance there, but I've hopefully come up with something that kind of works. I'll just play you a little bit of my jazzy stuff. Where do I go from? Let's go from, say, here. Go. You see, it's just all one hand. I've always been a very sort of like right hand dominant keyboard player. I've always had to work on getting my left hand good. And I have to say, in the last couple of years, with all of these lockdowns and a change in lifestyle and spending 99% of my time in my studio here, I've become, as well as unfit, I've become quite accident prone. And it was actually over a year ago, during the first of the major lockdowns that we had in the UK, I actually had an accident, a domestic incident in my own kitchen, and I damaged my left hand. I'm not going to tell you what I did because it's too embarrassing, but I think it would have been actually better if I'd actually fractured it and broken it, but I didn't. What I did was I ended up tearing the ligaments that separate my little finger from the rest of my fingers down here, and I couldn't play the piano at all. Couldn't put any pressure on my little finger at all, for at least 9 months afterwards, and it's very, very slowly getting back. I still can't span properly octaves and play with any pressure with my little finger. And of course, I've just got completely lazy as far as playing the piano is concerned. This hand is completely useless. It just, it ends up playing just single notes or chords and nothing more than that anymore. So I've got my New Year's resolution for 2022 is to actually really retrain my left hand and get it back to some kind of semblance. But you know what? When you're recording your own music, you don't need to be able to play two-handed on a keyboard at all. You don't even have to be able to play at all. You can just drag notes around with your mouse in a DAW. Why not? I saw deadmau5, his masterclass video. He can't play the piano at all. He just drags notes around with a mouse in his DAW. Works for him. Why in the hell not? So anyway, that is it. That's my little piece of music. I really do encourage you to have a go at a competition. Maybe if it's not this one, have a go at another competition that like sparks some interest for you. It's a really good. I think it's a really good exercise to push yourself and into sort of a slightly uncomfortable situation. You're trying to make something work. You've got a deadline. It's a good exercise, even if you don't actually, put your entry in for the competition. Just having gone through that exercise yourself, it's really, I think, a good thing to do once in a while at least. That's it. That's all I've got for this video. Happy Christmas and have a really wonderful and healthy and happy new year. Until my next video, as always, I really do appreciate you viewing my channel and subscribing to it and liking my videos and commenting. I love all the support that you've given me over the last couple of years. Thank you very, very much. Until the next one, which will probably be New Year now, as always. Thanks very, very much for watching.